The Declaration of Independence in 1776 changed the course of world history,
But America wasn't a free and independent country until it dealt with the threat of the British Army
and that happened here.
in Yorktown, Virginia. Three places, one story, the birth of America.
USA 250. By 1781, the Revolution was 6 years old, and the Americans were struggling.
The Continental Army was broke. Soldiers weren't getting paid, and whole units had mutinied. The British had changed strategy. They moved the war south. They took Savannah. They took Charleston. It was the worst American defeat of the entire war.
Washington had not won a major battle in years. In the summer of 1781, the British general Charles Cornwallis marched his army into Virginia. He had orders to establish a naval base on the coast.
He chose Yorktown, a small tobacco port on the York River. It had deep water. It had access to the Chesapeake Bay. It was perfect for a resupply by sea.
There was one problem.
Yorktown sits on a peninsula, one way in by water, one way in by land.
If you control the water and you control the land, army on the land is trapped.
Cornwallis was trapped. Cornwallis wasn't worried because the British always controlled the water. The Royal Navy was the most powerful on Earth. As long as British ships ruled the Chesapeake, Yorktown was a fortress.
And that is the war right there.
So whoever controlled the bay controlled the outcome. Nearly 500 miles north, Washington had a decision to make. He wanted to attack the British in New York. His French ally, General Rochambeau, disagreed.
Rochambeau knew something Washington did.
French fleet was coming, 28 ships. They weren't going to New York. They were coming to the Chesapeake. De Grasse was in the West Indies. He brought his entire fleet north, every ship.
So Washington gambled everything. He left a skeleton force outside New York to fool the British, and he marched the combined American and French armies nearly 500 miles south, in secret, in summer, facing a deadline only de Grasse's fleet could meet.
One of the really cool things about this museum is how interactive it can be to really help us understand history. Like the siege and surrender of Yorktown is shown here. What's going on here is we'll be able to see how Cornwallis came from the south up to Yorktown to establish a stronghold there. But while he was doing that, Rochambeau and Washington were coming down from New York. When the two met, Cornwallis was a little stuck. He had troops on either side, but with the French coming in this way and Rochambeau and Washington coming down this way, the siege of Yorktown ended up being the demise of Cornwallis. If the fleet was late, if the British found out, the whole army would be exposed. Everything depended on ships that no one on land could see.
September 5th, 1781, the Battle of the Chesapeake, arguably the most important naval battle in American history, and there wasn't a single American ship involved. A British fleet arrived to rescue Cornwallis and control the bay. They expected it to be empty. It wasn't. De Grasse had already arrived. What happened next decided the war. De Grasse took his ships out of the Chesapeake Bay and into open water. The two fleets fought for several hours. Neither side lost many ships. On paper, it wasn't even a clear victory. But the British fleet was damaged, and it was outnumbered. After several days of maneuvering off the coast, the British commander made a decision. He turned his fleet around and sailed back to New York. He left Cornwallis behind. The Royal Navy, the most powerful military force on Earth at the time, abandoned a British army on a Virginia peninsula. The moment that fleet turned north, Yorktown was lost.
Cornwallis just didn't know it yet.
Late September 1781, the combined American and French army arrived outside Yorktown. 16,000 troops against Cornwallis's 8,000.
Order and discipline. Pa. Regulations for order and discipline.
Take aim. Fire.
This was not a fair fight. It was never going to be.
The Allies dug trenches. They moved their cannons closer. Night after night, the guns never stopped. Cornwallis was pinned against a river he couldn't cross, waiting for a navy that wasn't coming.
On October 14th, the Allies stormed the last two British strongpoints, redoubts 9 and 10. One was taken by the French, the other by American light infantry, led by a young colonel named Alexander Hamilton. These cannons may have brush obstructing their line of fire now, but back in 1781, they were crucial to providing the final tactical advantage to shell the British town of Yorktown and eventually end the siege.
With those two positions gone, the Allied guns could hit every part of the British line.
Cornwallis was out of room, out of supplies, and out of time. October 17th, 1781. 4 years to the day after a British army surrendered at Saratoga, a white flag appeared over Yorktown.
2 days later, the British Army marched out to surrender.
Roughly 8,000 British troops laid down their arms right on this battlefield.
And Cornwallis didn't even come himself. He claimed he was ill, so he sent his second in command to hand over his sword.
The most powerful empire on earth had just lost a war to its own colonies and to France.
Yorktown was the last major battle of the American Revolution.
The treaty that ended the war came 2 years later, but the fighting ended here.
We're taught that America won its independence, and it did, but it didn't win it alone.
A French fleet closed the bay. French soldiers filled the trenches. French guns broke the line. Without France, there is no victory at Yorktown.
The story started a few miles from here in Jamestown with 104 men and a fort.
And it ran through Williamsburg, through an argument that became a declaration.
And it ended here on a battlefield above a river where an empire gave up.
And America was born.
This is where America was won.
Thanks for exploring it with us.